We have a huge problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis, and you will see exactly what I mean after we went through some screenshots that I made from the recent times. I just put them together to show you what I mean. Let's go into the first situation I have here. This is one of the recent Dueling Book DB Grinder videos, right? And he had this match between two combo decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis. And if we look at this board, this guy went first, had like a 1 or 2 card combo, and then just slapped the Rongomyat on the board. And yeah, if you don't know what Rongomyat does, this card is 31 points, and it says if it has 4 plus more materials, your opponent can normal or special summon monsters. If it has 3 plus materials, unaffected by other card effects. So this one has right here 4 materials, so it says your opponent cannot play at all, and also this one cannot be kaiju'd and is unaffected. Like the most unfair thing that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever had. So this guy goes first, slaps a huge combo. The opponent has no hand trap because this is Genesis. You can only play like 1 or 2 hand traps, 2 playset hand traps in your deck because they are so expensive. So one goes first, slaps in Rongomyat. Okay, I guess this one goes first, then he wins. Then this one scoops. Let's go to the next game. In the next game, this guy also builds a huge board. Negate has Unbreakable XYZ barrier set, has another take, has like 4 or 5 interruptions with this board. I don't really know the Doomsday cards that well, but I also think this one is also an interruption, right? But also builds like an unbreakable board. It's similar. The situation is similar. If you cannot play because Rongomyat is there and he doesn't let you summon, or your opponent has like for every card that you have an answer, also a counter trap, omni negates and stuff like that. So this guy scoops, right? So then we go game 3. He goes first again. Yeah, slaps on another Rongomyat, right? He even draws Dark Ruler, but that doesn't matter because you cannot negate Rongomyat because it's unaffected. So he sets 1 card, then it's the opponent's turn, he just kills him. Yeah, this looks like so much fun, right? But this is not the only instance. I have a lot more stuff here to rant about. Let's go into the next screenshot I have here. It's posted on Twitter from Thunder Fury, right? I think one of a big respected guy. He played a lot of Genesis, and he made like a post a few days ago. Let's just look at this situation, right? He plays Fire King. It's a super cool deck. I also think Super Balanced has a super nice place in Genesis. It's it's just a cool match. Always you play against Fire King. It's a lot of fun. Cannot afford to play a lot of hand traps because the engine is expensive because it's a strong deck, right? That's how it should be. If you have a strong engine, the engine should cost some points. So you cannot play hand traps. But should you then lose just because you go second? Because this deck can actually play into boards. But look at this. There's nothing to play in. He even got a crow, but that did not change anything. This guy just ended on Drawn Lockbird, which ends this guy's turn anyway, right? But he has a hand trap on top of 2 Lunarlight Liger Dancer. If you don't know what Liger Dancer does, this one is a tower that says it's unaffected. Just simply unaffected. You can kaiju it, right? But if you have red kaijus, they say you can only control 1 kaiju at 1 point. So if they end on 2, you cannot give them a second kaiju. That's why I'm also playing Santa Claus, because you can give them a kaiju and Santa Claus then. But you need like 2 kaijus to out. So kaiju and the Santa Claus. And the other effect is just not once per turn, pop all your opponent's monsters. So you cannot even build a monster to run over this, because he can just pop all of your monsters twice per turn with this. And I think it also has like an effect to attack more cards, but you basically lose if you don't out this. But how to out this? You go second, you lose against that. And on top, he can also play like hand traps in this deck, which is even more ridiculous because draw is like so cheap, and draw isn't even fixing the problem. If we look at this one, this is also a tower. This guy went second. He had 3 hand traps. It's from Genesis Grinder. It is also a YouTube channel. I look for information. So yeah, the other guy had a draw, a nip, and this guy still ended on Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus. This one is with 4 materials only, so at least it's not a floodgate on top, so at least this guy can now search, but he can, I think, shuffle cards back, and is also unaffected if it has 4 materials plus. So this one still ends on a tower, even if you get rolled, right? So again, the same thing. You go first, you are highly likely to win. Yeah, super cool game, right? Better than the normal TCG. Hey, yeah. Okay, but I still have more. Let's look at this. It's also from Thunder Theory. Onomat. This guy played a super cool fusion deck, super strong engine, so he has to pay all his points for engine, right? That's fine. But still, should you just lose if you go second? And I think the answer is no, because how should you play through this board? That's nearly impossible. He also has a draw on top, right? Doesn't it a strong interruption? This one is a super strong interruption and a tower on top, and also a hard negate for monsters. And this one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has like the Nightmare, the Eclipse Twin card under it, so even if you out this, it will just straight up come back, because the Eclipse Twin can just easily reborn it. This is a negate. On top of that, it's equipped with this one, so it's another negate. This one says also, I think, cards cannot be targeted and not be destroyed, so... And I think this one also makes everything water, and yeah, it's a super crazy board that... If you build this going first, also Board Breaker wouldn't like fully break this. I guess Dark Ruler could help here, but right, you have to draw this out. If you don't draw that out instantly, you just lose against this, because the board is like way too strong. Then let's go for another Onomat board. This was one of my games. Here I drew 3 Kaijus and I still lost. I also think I slightly misplayed in this game, but I still lost. Even though I had like double Santa Claus and Radiant, because he doesn't even have the board. He also has like monster interruption, then he has interruption in the graveyard, because he can detach or attach something to his monsters, I think. He also has like strong back row that he can search, and also on top of that hand traps, sure. And also 5 cards left, right? So if this combo resolves, you will just lose. There's no way you win this, because this board is like way too strong. And yeah, but I have more. Right here, Punk. You go first with this deck. This deck is horrible going second, but if you go first, you just end on this. There's like 3 strong interruption as back row. They have like their own traps that negate. You have interruption through the graveyard. You also can play hand traps, because this deck doesn't cost a lot of points, right? You got a board wipe, you got a hard negate. So yeah, if you go second, you'll likely just lose. You also, I think, can draw 3 or 4 cards with this engine, because this one can also draw cards. The field spell can draw 2 cards, so you can even draw into hand traps to have another layer of interruption. So again, you go second, you have no like cards to stop that, you lose. You just lose. Another thing, White Forest, a deck I really like to play, but super unfair. You go first. My opponent here plays like a trap deck. He had no way to interrupt me, so I end on a board that's really hard to break. I also end on Omni Negate, and I also can play like Troll Lockberg on top. So what I want to say, all of those boards have something in common. They go first, and they're extremely unfair, and one player always has like no fun. Honestly, this right now, if I look at those boards, just feels like a worse TCG, right? Because in TCG, we have all those strong combos. Yeah, they're there. I guess you can play that if you want to. But you have to play around hand traps, because every deck is able to play a lot of hand traps. Also mold traps and stuff like that. So it doesn't end that often. You do not end that often on a board like those that I showed you, right? you will get a hand trap if you play like a deck like Lunalight. It's also full power, even way stronger in the TCG, but you have a lot of hand traps to stop Lunalight, and so you won't have the problem that you will face those boards like that. So I think when we take a look at those boards and those situations, the TCG is in a better spot right now than Genesys, and this is like hard to say, because the next question is, what do we expect from Genesys? What do we want Genesys to be? I think everybody has to answer this question like individually, and everybody will come to a different conclusion. If I have to tell you my conclusion, it would be that I want Genesys to be a format that's more balanced and more fun, right? You should be able to experiment a bit, to also play like a deck that's a bit worse. It is not that optimal, and you should also be definitely able to go second and not to insta lose if you don't draw a hand trap, or if your deck cannot afford a hand trap. You also shouldn't insta lose because the opponent builds a board that it's just like abysmal and he plays like for 20 minutes and then it's your turn. Well, wow, that's so much fun. So for me, the key point is to fix, when we think about fixing this format, is increasing the fun for the players and making the games more like interactive. And we have to stop that you just lose if you go second. So I think this is like the biggest thing, is make more interaction and don't make it that you lose if you go second. That's like the biggest thing. Don't make a game dependent on the die roll. Yeah, but that's currently the case. If you go second, you will just lose because of the die roll. Okay, enough for the negativity. Let's think about how can we fix the situation. How can we make this game better? How can we fix the mess that there is? I talked about it before. I think right now the TCG is what's if it's about hand traps and about a situation for going second, a bit better than Genesys. It's not good, don't misunderstand me. We still have like a ton of floodgates, which is the biggest problem in the TCG. But the engines itself, I think in the TCG, are kind of well balanced through hand traps right now. So yeah, we don't have to talk about that they are way too strong, but if you have a Mold Charmy, you are kind of good if you go second, if the opponent doesn't have the out, which is probably Ash, right? Something like that. But there's no Ash, no Copy and stuff like that, and no strong floodgates that you could have if you go first, if you get Mold Charmy in the Genesys format. So I think all those decks I showed you are also possible to play in the TCG, right? But they are not played because they often lose to a single hand trap, right? It's, if you look at Punk, or if you look at even the White Forest deck, if you just start with one of the White Forest monsters, I think it's called White Forest LEZ or something like that. If you just have one Ash on this can often, if you don't have like a really strong extender, can just stop their whole turn. Or for example, like the Punk deck. Also, if you just stop their Xiam in normal summon, this could be huge, right? There is like way less on the board. So actually, low impact hand traps have a lot of interruption against those decks. They're super strong. Right now in the TCG, the low impact hand traps could feel like a bit lackluster, like Whale or stuff like that are a bit too weak. But in Genesys, those cards are super strong. And yeah, I think the solution to the problem will be to change hand traps in Genesys, fundamentally change hand traps in Genesys. And I have like two different approaches on that. I will tell you both. I think the second one is my personal favorite, but I think both are like a valid choice that you can do. Let's start with the first one. So the first idea that I have to fix this problem is make low impact hand traps much cheaper, way cheaper. I'm talking about like 1 or 2 points cheap, right? That if you have like Nash Blossom, it should be like 5 points. If you have like Ghost Mourner, this should be like 0 points or something like that, right? Something like that. Just go down on those that you can play more of them. Yes, you will have hand trap wars then, but if you have those hand traps, you will significantly make boards weaker. And I think it's better to play like a game where it goes if you skip if you go like past turn, and you just have an hand trap war and everybody drops hand traps on each other, then just losing to a full combo board. So I think this is more interactive than losing to a full combo board. And not every deck can play like huge amount of hand traps, but if there are those options that decks could play more hand traps because they are cheaper, then people automatically would play less combo decks and more decks that are more like resilient to hand traps but do not build like super strong boards, right? So I think this would just help to do that. And yeah, I think that would overall increase the fun, even though people hate it when we have like hand traps, but it would make a huge new problem, which I'm seeing, and this is also the reason why I don't think this is like the best solution for that. It would give decks like that are combo decks and are already strong going first the ability to put up their combo and also have hand traps on top. We had that problem in the Snake Eyes format, for example. Every deck had to play like 20 hand traps and then one card starter, and then just build their board with one card and then have 4 hand traps on top of that. So you could never defeat that. If the opponent played and has hand traps on top, this is like way too layered. You cannot defeat a board like that. So you have to make sure. I think this is like the biggest thing. You have to make sure that decks that have one card combo have so many points that you are not able to play a lot of hand traps, right? So there shouldn't be like decks that have the one card engine. So if you play like a strong combo deck, you always will have to have like a 2 card combo. Then you are also allowed to play hand traps on top. Or if you have a 1 card combo that's super strong, you should have as many points, so you won't be able to even play those 1 or 2 point hand traps that we want to go down because we want to have more hand traps, right? So this is like the thing that has to come on top with that. And I think we also, if you want to make this change, we also want to change the hand traps that are played. Right now, the hand traps that are played are maybe like Fuvalos, are like Droll, are like Nip, all those super high impact hand traps. We want to make it more playable that people play low impact hand traps like Whaler, DD Crow, even Ash Blossom, even though Ash Blossom could maybe be like better if it's like 5 or 10 points than still, because Ash Blossom is like super strong in those Genesys format. But let's talk about all those other like Ogre, Morna, and even Ghost Spell, stuff like that. All those hand traps can have a big impact if you have like more than one. So we want to see then those hand traps being played. We don't want to see Nip then played. We also don't want to see like a shifter being played. We also don't want to see especially Droll. If you go first and have Droll on top, this can be like the dumbest thing. So we want to give high impact hand traps more points and low impact hand traps less points, so you can play more low impact rather than like one high impact hand trap. So this is like the idea that I have here. My second idea was, why don't we move more into a board breaker format? Board breakers are way healthier for the format, since you don't need so many board breakers. If you only have one of them, it can be enough to break a board. But your engine also has to be able to break a board, right? But in theory, they're a bit more interactive. And the way more important thing is board breakers. If you have them, if you main deck them, you cannot have them on top of your board. So if you have like a Dark Ruler or Kaijus or stuff like that, if you go first and full combo, yeah, you will have like your full combo, but those will stay on your hand. And if you are able to survive like the turn because your opponent would have then also board breakers, then you can just use them again in turn 3. So you won't get any combo advantage with that. You won't have anything on top of your board. So I think this is why it's way more healthy to have a board breaker format. But the problem with board breakers is we already have a lot of super cheap board breakers. We have like Dark Ruler at 0 points. We also have the Appaloosa card. I'm talking about Ultimate Slayer. It's already at 0 points, right? We have Kaijus that are all 0 points. We have Lava Golem and stuff like that, but not every deck can play Lava Golem. But they're still not enough. It's not enough because people build like boards that are layered. You don't only have like monster interruptions, you also have like spell and traps, you have interruptions through the graveyard, maybe you also have interruptions through the hand because you can play search something like 5 mana or whatever, right? So in theory, we have to play them stronger non-engine, something like evenly, but yeah, if the non-engine is even stronger, it drains out more fun because it's not fun to lose against evenly or stuff like that. So this or lightning storm. So this is not even the best idea, I think, to just go lower on those board breakers. You could go lower on board breakers that are like a bit mid tier, right? If something like Chalice or Book of Eclipse, Super Poly, which is also not that fun, but yeah, but it's not turn ending, or Forbidden Droplet. But then we have the problem again that those are also good if you main deck and go first, because you can just build your board and slap them just in the spell trap zone, and then you have one more interruption just for free, right? So I think this is also not the solution that will make the game better and healthier. But lucky enough, TCG has already invented cards that work like board breakers, but aren't board breakers. I'm talking about the Charmys. I think it's a way better idea to have cheaper Charmys than to have a cheap troll, right? The difference is very simple. The impact can be the same, right? A droll can end the turn, but also a Molchami Fuvalos can end the turn. But a droll can end the turn also when you go first. You go first, you build your board, you have droll on top, you insta win because of the droll, right? Even if his hand could maybe play through, because he has a strong engine, could maybe play through your board, but if you have the droll, you just insta win just because of the droll. And you also have like the board, right? But the droll just made it a non-game then. So this wouldn't be the same if you had like Molchami Fuvalos. So I think it's more healthy to have like Fuvalos or even Purulia or Meowth in the game at a lot of lower points. Also, with Molchamis, you have a decision. This one also gives you a bit more of skill impression, because you have to make the decision, how many cards do I want to give my opponent? If I know what my opponent is playing, how many cards can I give to this deck? Is it like a deck that doesn't really good play going second and has like a lot of starters that only work by themselves and has clear choke points, so I can actually give him some more draws if I just stop the choke point, right? So, or is it a deck that's super scary and has like super strong abilities to play through a board, so maybe I shouldn't give him as much draws, right? So those are all decisions that you can make with your skill, that you have the options to make those decisions. You don't have that withdrawal or something like that. So I think in those regards, those are way better, and it's also better than, I think, a board breaker, because it prevents a board. So people would actually play that over board breakers because they're just better. And yeah, I think this could be the solution to make them cheaper. But now, hear me out. I also have like a more crazy idea. So why don't we set all the Charmys to 1 or 0 points? Hear me out. It's a crazy idea. I know. But I think this is like a thing. Everybody could play the Charmys in the side deck then. Because, as I said before, it's like bad if you play 9 Charmys in the main deck. Because if you get stopped or something like that, it, it just hurts because then you have all those bricks in your hand. So every deck could at least play like the right Charmys for the matchup in the side deck. So in hindsight, in the other way around, every deck has now to realize, okay, at least in game 2, I have to have a plan against that Charmy that hits my deck the most. And this would automatically make decks way weaker that don't have a plan into Charmy. And they have to adapt. They have to maybe play another engine with that, or they have to play like fair traps, because there are no floodgate traps that you can play if you get Charmed in Genesys. They are only like the macrocosmos and stuff, but I think this should have points anyway, but this is not to debate right here. But in general, there are a lot less floodgates traps, so the Charmies would actually have like a big impact, and you have to make a plan how to play through those Charmies. Can I change my combo to be able to play through Charmies? Can I give my opponent draws? So, or maybe do I just decide to go second after siding? Because I know my opponent could just side in some Charmies that would just easily win against my deck. So I just decide, okay, I just go second and let's see what we can do here. So there's even more mind games involved then. And it's not just that easy, yeah, I win the die roll, I go first, and this is always the right choice if I go game 3 first and again, right? So I think it's a super crazy idea. And if it's way too broken on a deck, right? Because if you have, let's say for example, if you have like a deck that has a super strong engine, we talk maybe about the Draco Tail deck, right? They want to have a lot of cards. They don't even play like non-engine. They only play like something like 5 mana, right? They don't play anything else that's non-engine. They just go full gas on their engine. If they want to play those cards going second, that could be a bit too strong. But then we kind of have to give the Charmies 1 point and give those engines like more points, so they won't be able to easily incorporate those Charmies, because then they have to cut stuff on their engine. Then when they have to cut down their engine, then it's again fine that they play the Charmies, right? So my idea is Charmies to 1 point every Charmy, or to 0 point, depending on how we want to balance the game. I know this is like a crazy idea, and if it doesn't work, it could also not work, right? Then we can just change it in 1 month from now. But I think this could be worth a try to just do that and see how it comes out. And I think this could benefit the Genesys format like a lot. You could just have more half boards and then play into a half board, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a better game if the opponent only makes its half board and you try to play into it, and then it goes back and forth. Then it's also about skill and not just about I just make the better combo, I have the better combo tutorial. So yeah, let me please know what you think about the idea. Also, let me know if you think it's like the worst idea you ever heard. But please don't just write that it's the worst idea you ever had. Please also give me like a dedicated reasoning for that, why you think it's a bad idea, because I really want to have a discussion under this video. I'm also like really not really sure on this, right? I think there could be maybe way better ways to balance this, but I think it's a super hard situation to balance the Genesys format, because the engines aren't that strong, right? They can there are a lot of engines that cannot easily play through like even one hand trap, or they cannot play through like Charmy, right? So it's super hard to balance, and I also don't know if the idea that I have will help, right? But maybe you have a better idea, just write it down in the comments. I will read them all as ever. As always, I always read all my comments. I think it's pretty important to interact and to hear the ideas from everybody. And also, it would be really help if you just subscribe to my channel. Maybe also hype the video. I heard that's a good thing. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think, and see you guys in the next video.